This is the brand new 2023 Honda Rebel 1100T, aka the touring version of the Rebel 1100. A few months ago, Honda announced it and I made a video kind of talking down on it, saying that it was a bit underwhelming for a touring package. It looks good, but it's not as exciting as I was hoping for. And there were a decent amount of people that agreed with me. Well, I've been riding this thing non-stop for the past 4 days, and it's finally time to weigh in on my opinion after actually experiencing the bike. So today we're going to do a quick walk around of the bike, give you an overview of it and what makes it the touring package. Then we'll hop on it and go for a ride, and I'll talk about all the things that I liked about the bike in my time with it, all the things that I hated in my time with it, and where I think Honda went wrong with this, and the reason might surprise you. Welcome back to Life of Birch. I'm Birch, and if you're not familiar with the channel, I ride a Rebel 1100 in my day-to-day life, but it's not the touring model. Mine is one of the base model manual ones, and I've built it out, just kind of spec'd it to exactly how I like it, decked out with all the goodies, so it was definitely interesting switching over to a stock bike, and not just stock, but the touring model. Gotta be honest, I was pleasantly surprised by it, but there were some things I didn't like. Anyway, let's check it out. If you're not familiar with it, I'll just do a quick overview. I have made videos about this already in my time here, but essentially the only difference between the touring model and the base model is going to be these brand new hard bags, this awesome looking new touring fairing, and then some other small odds and ends like the flat black frame as opposed to gloss black. And in the US, this is only available in the automatic DCT, not the manual. Other than that, that is the only difference between this and the base, which is part of the reason why people were let down, but we'll talk about that when we get on to go for a ride. This one is featured in the, I'm going to mess this up, I don't remember the exact color code, but essentially it's their black color. It's more of like a dark gunmetal with some blue tones to it. Looks really good. And then it's also offered in the Bordeaux red metallic. Big fan of both of the colors, and those are actually the colors that have always been around for the base model Rebel 1100s as well. So this is the exact same color as the bike that I ride in my day-to-day life. The main thing I want to look at before we get on the road is just showing you the fairing and the hard bag. So we'll start out with the fairing. I gotta say, honestly, I love this thing. Love it. I think the design of it is fantastic. I think it looks way better than any other fairing offered for these bikes. This windshield right here on top of the fairing is what's going to come with it from the factory, and then they also offer one that I think is 2 or 3 inches taller for a bit more wind protection, which was one of my dislikes, but we'll talk about that when we get on the road. But overall, just from an aesthetic standpoint, I love the fairing. It looks even better in person. I liked it in the photos, but seeing it in person, like, that is the way to go. Then we'll come right back to the saddlebags. The saddlebags, I've mentioned this in other videos, are kind of hit or miss. I love the functionality of them, and I love the looks of them for the most part, but there's a few big eyesores that I think were kind of a miss. And the main thing is just this this bracket that comes along here, kind of an eyesore. I understand it from a functionality standpoint, but not exactly the best looking. And then of course they had to make the saddlebags uneven to fit the exhaust. Honestly, I've harped on this in other videos, but now that I've had the bike for so long, it's a lot less noticeable than I thought it was going to be. Like my OCD was going crazy at first saying, how are you going to have uneven saddlebags? But honestly, I think it's kind of a non-issue now. If you look at it from this side, both bags come down the same distance. It's just when you look at it from the back is where you kind of get the eyesore of the unevenness and the bracket. But if you're looking at the bike from the side, both of the bags come down the same distance. So honestly, I think that, not as big of a deal as I first thought it was going to be. Now, I don't remember off the top of my head how much storage capacity these things have, but I'll put the number right here. But numbers aside, functionality-wise, these things have been a blast for this trip. They make it so easy. You don't have to take a backpack anywhere. You don't need a tank bag. You have tons of space. And not only tons of space, but you're not sacrificing all that space for looks. They still look sleek, they still look streamlined while still giving you plenty of space. I feel like if they were just on a hunt for all the space you could get, it would look way oversized for the size of the bike, but I think they nailed it. Now, talking about size, let's check this thing out. That's what she said! It's already unlocked, but I'll show you why I took the key out. So these are locking saddlebags, and one thing that I didn't realize is I thought you would need the key to unlock it every time, but you don't. When the key is in this sideways position here, they're unlocked, and all you have to do is press this button, and it pops right open, opens like that, and you got tons of storage space. This thing fits so much. I'll kind of empty it out so you can see the size of it. But the other day, I folded up my riding jacket and put it in there. I think I had my jacket, my hat, my GoPro, my gloves, a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's substantial. So that is that one. And then this side is obviously a bit smaller. Just hit the button and it pops right open. You can see that it does come up like this and kind of takes up some of the space. I will say that I'm not sure, like I said, what the exact capacity of these is, but whatever that capacity is, you do get a little bit of kind of lost space on the side here, unless you have something like skinny that can fit there and some lost space here. But either way, they're super functional. I ended up loving these things way more than I thought I would. Now that's a nice little reminder of one of the, it is windy as hell. I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but one of the things that I was not fond of with these bags is how difficult they can be to close sometimes. They're a bit finicky. So to close it, all you do is push down, but I'm like, pushing it down, you know, and it's not locking. You really have to almost like hold the bottom and give it a good, and now that clicked. So let's see if I can get you guys to hear when it clicks through the wind. So you hold it and it, there you go. So a bit finicky to close, but that's really my only gripe with it. The nice thing is, like I said, I thought you needed the key to unlock it every time, but you don't. It just pops open as long as it's in that position, so you can leave the bike running, jump off, get something out of the bag, and go on your way. But they do still lock, so you can just put it down, turn the key to the up position, and now nobody can get in there. And now this is standard on the base models also, but while we're talking about storage space, you do have the under-seat storage here as well. So between this and the charging port for charging your phone and keeping little stuff there, and then these for all your bigger stuff, honestly, for a bike that's technically this small, for a touring bike, you still have tons of storage space, which is a huge bonus. It is hot as hell down here, so not having to wear a backpack this whole time and still being able to put everything away has been great. So there's a little overview of the bike and some of the features of the bags and the fairing and everything like that. Now let's hop on this bad boy and talk about what kind of riding I did and why that led to the things that I love about this bike and the things that I hate about it, and that'll lead us into kind of where I think Honda really went wrong with this. Do we think this is a good place for a transition? Was it worth it? Was it a cool transition? Anyway, let's get on the road, and to show you how to start the bike up, because it is DCT, I'm going to just do it real quick because I've talked about it in other videos. Normally you would have the parking brake up, but I didn't. It has to have a parking brake because since it's DCT, you can't leave it in gear. So in order for it to not roll while it's parked, if you're on a hill or something, it has the parking brake. Engaging it is super simple. You just pull it up like I just showed, and then to take the parking brake off, you just put a little bit of pressure up on it, hit that button, and it'll go down, and you're good to go. Now to start it, you push the button down. You'll hear the fuel pump prime like normal. You'll see that it's in neutral, and over here is how you select everything: neutral, drive, automatic, and manual. So we'll hit the, oh wait, it's not even started. Start it up. Then we'll hit the D button, and two things will happen when you hit the D button. You'll see the neutral go to first gear, and then the user mode, you'll see a D pop up there. Ready? So you hear the clunk and you see it kind of like go forward just slightly, letting you know that it's in gear. So now it's in first gear, and then the D is one of the selectable parts of the user modes in here. So it has different modes. I'm in user mode, which is my favorite settings. We'll talk about that in a second. But then it also has rain mode, which is the lowest power, highest traction, lowest engine brake, and the lowest DCT setting, meaning that it won't wind out through the gears as much before it shifts. So it'll shift around like 2,000 RPM instead of, 6,000. Then standard is going to be 2 out of 3 for all of them. Sport mode is going to be like the gnarliest setting, full power, lowest traction, 2 out of 3 engine brake, and 3 out of 3 for the DCT setting. My favorite mode that I found throughout doing all of this is the highest power, lowest traction, lowest engine brake, and the highest DCT setting. So we'll get on the road, we'll talk about some of the riding that I did and why I kind of decided on that. And really the reason is because I like the power all the way up, so the throttle is nice and responsive. You have all the power when you need it, and then turning the traction and engine braking down all the way, I found to make it not quite as lurchy and jittery at low speeds. Since you don't have a clutch to play with the friction zone, it seems to make it a lot more manageable at low speeds by having those two all the way down. Now I like the DCT setting all the way up because you can see right now it's revving all the way out to 3,000 RPM, and it's kind of staying there, and then it shifts. I find it to shift more similar to how I ride than the other modes, and you can see as you come to a stop, it downshifts for you and everything. Now on this trip I did all kinds of riding. I did everything you can imagine. I'm at Daytona Bike Week. I forget if I mentioned that or not, but in Daytona there's a lot of stop and go traffic, a lot of just chaos going on. So I did a lot of kind of stop and go city type stuff down here, but then I also had a day where I went about 100 miles out to go to a Harley stunt show and to visit a friend, and that was the exact opposite. I hopped on the highway and it was like an 87-mile straight shot until my next exit, where I just put this thing in cruise control and held it at 85 the entire way there. So yeah, a little bit of everything. I really did it all on this bike. Yeah, I should not be back here, I'm pretty sure. And at first I actually started out just manual shifting with this thing. So like I said, this AM goes from automatic to manual, so we're full automatic right now, and you can leave it like that all the time, or you can hit that button and it'll be in manual mode, so it won't shift until I tell it to. So this right here, I can hit the down button, it'll downshift, and there's a trigger up here, I can upshift. It does everything I tell it to and nothing else. The only time that it takes over is when you come to a stop. It'll go into first gear for you in case you forget and you don't try to pull away in 5th gear or something. But you can see now, like, it stays in gear just like a manual. Then you can click up and you can control everything on your own. So I thought that I would like it in full manual, and then came to find out that what I actually like is leaving it in automatic, just like that, with these settings that I talked about, and then occasionally using the triggers just to get it to do what I want. So if I'm, you know, I'm sitting here and I realize there's a car in front of me going slow and I need to pass, when I get on the throttle, it will downshift for me, but that takes like a second or two. So if I want to be ready, and I know I'm about to pass them, I see an opening behind me, I can downshift into second, and then as soon as I need it, it's ready. And then once the bike senses that you don't need it anymore, based off of your throttle position, your brakes, everything like that, it'll just go back to fully auto for you, which is awesome. So I was just shifting myself, and then now I can just go, and it goes back to full auto for me. Oh, this looks like a nice little neighborhood. Okay, so let's talk about all of the things that I loved about this bike. So I've done plenty of reviews about the Rebel 1100, so I really just want to focus on just the T model here. If you want to see reviews about the Rebel 1100 itself, you can check those out on my channel. This is just going to focus on the T model. So some of the things that I really loved about this bike, like I said, not to beat a dead horse, I really like the saddlebags, which is crazy because, like I said, I talked crap about how they looked, but the functionality of them is great. They have just the right amount of storage space where I can put anything in there that I need for a day trip, but they're not super big and bulky. I think that is probably the biggest thing that I like about it. Ooh. See how it was shifting for me, and it wasn't quite redlining because I didn't have the throttle open all the way. If the throttle was open all the way, it would redline and then shift. So like, this bike is smarter than most riders. I love it. And I guess that'll lead into the next thing that I loved about this bike is the DCT. And that's crazy because I've made videos not trash talking, but saying that the DCT is not for me. I've said before that the DCT, I understand its merits and I understand how it's good for people who might have physical limitations or something like that, but it's just not for me. But I have to be honest, after getting to be on this bike for 4 straight days as opposed to just the hour that I spent on a DCT bike before, I understand it now. DCT is so convenient. It like takes lots of the thought work out of riding and lets you just enjoy the ride. And once you go from thinking about it like, oh, this isn't how I would shift, and you switch your mindset to, all I have to do is twist the throttle and go and just have fun. That was kind of the mindset shift that I had to make, where it just made it so enjoyable. It's so nice to be going down the coast here and just be able to like soak in the sights and really just have to worry about my surroundings and staying safe and not worrying about, okay, do I need to downshift? Do I need to upshift? Am I in the right RPMs, the right gear? Like if I had to emergency brake for that car doing whatever the hell they were just doing, it would have downshifted for me. And then the harder you brake, the quicker it downshifts for you. So it's downshifting slow here, but I just slammed on the brakes and it downshifted quick. You want to see how quick it is though? See, so that's what I'm saying. You see it downshifting for me, dude? I love this thing. So yeah, so that one, I had the throttle literally all the way open and it redlined and then shifted, whereas otherwise it kind of pays attention to your throttle position to tell it when to shift. So yeah, DCT, big win for me, which is crazy. The saddlebags and DCT are the two things that I said I don't like, and I ended up changing my mind totally once I had some time with them. Ooh, that's pretty. And then I'll say the other thing that I love about this bike is just honestly the overall package, you know? It's super convenient, super light, flickable, easy to use, but still has all the functionality. It has the underseat phone charger. It has the stock cruise control with it, which is huge for touring. I did like over 250 miles yesterday, something like that. And like I said, it was all just straight shot highway. If I had to do that without cruise control, it would have sucked. But the fact that I can just set it in cruise control, easy as can be, and just go is great. Just the total package. This bike is so much fun. You can do stuff around town. You can do touring, cruise control, phone charger, fairing, saddlebags. Just the whole package is great. So I was just saying that I love the total package of this bike, but I guess that there's some not so truth to that, because like I said, we got to talk about dislikes, and there's a lot of stuff that I also don't like about this bike, which is why I think Honda kind of went wrong and dropped the ball, and there's some things that this bike really needs in order to be a true touring bike. So let's see, what should I say is my first dislike? I guess we'll circle back to the DCT. I don't like some aspects of the DCT, such as really low speed stuff. Sometimes, even though I said just don't focus on how you would shift, blah blah blah, sometimes as you're coming to a stop, it does downshift a bit early and lunk you forward. Whoa, that revved up a lot. So that's a little bit weird. Like, let's see when it does it here. That was nice and smooth, but sometimes if you slow down to like 10 miles per hour to take a turn, it'll downshift into first while you're taking the turn, and it'll kind of jar you, and it can be a little sketchy sometimes. These Rebels are a bit twitchy down low anyway, so I put a power commander on mine, and that seemed to smooth everything out. Power commander is a must, so you can check out the video up here. And then also with slow speeds, like I said, you don't have a clutch to work the friction zone, so I find that you kind of just need to keep a little bit on the throttle and then almost use the rear brake as your friction zone, you know, like almost drag the rear brake to keep, I don't know how to describe it, but it almost use the rear brake as your friction zone to keep the momentum up. But that's just kind of a learning curve. That's not really a dislike, that's just a learning curve with the DCT. Now my next dislike that relates to one of the things that I already said that I like is actually the fairing. As much as I like the way that it looks, I don't want to say I don't like the way it performs, but for me, dude, people in Florida can't drive. What were they doing? Anyway, for me, the screen height is at exactly the wrong location. I'm about 5'10", 5'11" on a tall day. I like screens that are a little bit lower so that it takes all the pressure off your chest but still leaves your head in the breeze. This does exactly that, but this for me needs to either be like an inch shorter or an inch taller. It takes all the wind off of my chest and leaves my head in the breeze, but where the wind hits is right underneath my chin, so all of the air goes up in my helmet and it makes it loud. I don't get any sort of buffeting, my head's not shaking, I'm not in turbulent air. It's just that the air lands right underneath my chin curtain and pushes air up into my helmet, making it super loud. If I squat down just a little bit, then it kind of like directs the wind onto my chin and over my helmet. And if I stand up nice and proper, it kind of hits me in my neck and doesn't put air up into my helmet. But if I sit just how I normally ride like this on highway speeds, it gets really loud. But like I said, they offer the taller windscreen, so maybe that's all that I would need. But then the other thing is the hand coverage here. So it is nice that it covers the hands. I gotta be honest though, in hot weather like this, it would be nice to have breeze on your hands. So I would almost prefer a fairing like the one that I have, and then maybe some hand guards so you can choose when you want to have the hand guards on. But in cold weather this would be great. My biggest gripe with it though, which is a very specific issue to have that all people might not have, is the fact that it covers your hands, but I don't know if you can see, my hands come up above it a little bit, so it takes the wind off of your fingers, but then the air comes over top and hits the top of your hand. And it's enough that when I was on the highway several times I had to re-strap my gloves, because you can see I have little wrists, so the Velcro is kind of hanging on for dear life as is, and the wind would come right over top of my hand and it would get this thing dancing around and unstrap my glove. So I would have to like put it in cruise control and bring my hand over and re-Velcro my gloves. So very specific to me issue, but I just had to point it out. Now some other dislikes that I have about this, I'm trying to figure out how to word it, because I think some of the dislikes come from the fact that I know that I have my bike set up so perfect for me and that this bike is not. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like once you get your bike set up to how you like it, it could be a great touring bike, but in stock form I found a few things to be wrong for a touring bike. So for one thing, I have the Burley brand MX pegs on mine, and these pegs are much smaller, and as soon as I got on the highway I realized like I don't have anywhere to put my feet. My Burley brand MX pegs are much bigger and you can set the angle to exactly how you want them, and they're also very grippy. So with my MX pegs I can just kind of like hook my heel in and stretch my leg out a bit more and have plenty of room. But with these pegs you got to be like right here, and it's almost like this little nub here is like in the bridge of your foot, and your foot's rolling around and like hanging off the side, and it's really uncomfortable and almost gives you like some leg strain just trying to keep your feet on these little tiny pegs. And then the other thing that I find this bike to kind of be lacking, that I forgot how great my upgrade is the Burley brand stiletto shocks that I put on this thing. The stock shocks on this bike are kind of lacking. You really got to dial them in, and they're still kind of finicky. They'll bounce you around, not super comfy. And on the same token, the seat is not comfortable. If you're talking about a touring bike, you really need something more comfortable. And I've been a big proponent personally of saying that the seat is comfortable, because I still rock the stock seat on my bike and I'll ride for 9 hours a day, whatever, without any issue. But I think I forgot how much time it takes to break the seat in, because the first day that I was riding this bike, I was like, oh my god, this thing, my butt cheeks hurt. But on my bike at home, that is not the case at all. But I have about 5,000 miles on my Rebel 1100, so somewhere along the way the seat broke in and got much more comfortable than what we're working with here. So I guess those are kind of gripes, not only for the T model but also for just the Rebel 1100 in general. Those are things that I changed that made it a super big difference, that I kind of forgot how impactful they were, which kind of leads into the fact that without a lot of stuff, there's a lot that this bike needs to be a real touring model, which is where I think Honda messed up. So I'll tell you what I think I would do to this bike to make it a touring model, and then I'll tell you what I think Honda could have done better. So I think if you really want this bike to be a touring model, I think Honda should have put dead end. I think Honda should have put a slightly bigger gas tank, which is what people were hoping for. I think they should have put forward controls on it from the factory. These are mid controls. They're a bit cramped. I personally like the footing position because I've said it before. I think this is more of like a naked bike disguised as a cruiser, so I don't mind it. But I think if you're going to call it a touring model, you should have had forward controls, more comfortable seat, and maybe upgraded suspension as well. I think that could have set it apart as a great low cost, lightweight, nimble, fun touring bike. But I think the way that it's set up, you know, you get about 160, 170, I'd say between 150 to 170 miles per tank, depending on what kind of riding you're doing. I ran my tank dang near dry and got 161.5 miles out of it, which for the kind of riding that I do, it's okay. You know, that's a few hours of riding before you have to stop for gas. I think it's totally fine for the average rider, but to call it a touring model, I think more range would be good, because you're saying that it's for long range riding. So yeah, I think just some more comfort options and some more range options really would have turned this bike into the touring model that they called it, but it doesn't have it, so it doesn't feel like a touring model, and I think that's where Honda went wrong. I think this bike is phenomenal. I love the full package, but I think there's one thing that Honda could have done to make this bike better, and that is that I do not think they should have called it the Rebel 1100 touring model. Like I said, when you hear touring model, you immediately, oh my god, it's windy. I really hope this is not messing up the audio. Let's go explore down here at the Braun factory. I really hope the wind isn't messing up the audio as much as I thought it is. But anyway, I think the one thing that they could have done to make this bike, to make people appreciate the total package that this is instead of calling it the touring model, just call it the deluxe model or something like that. If it was the 1100D, the 1100 Deluxe, instead of the 1100T, 1100 Touring, I think that would have kind of switched people's mindsets about it and made them understand what this bike actually is. By calling it the touring model, people think, oh, it's a Rebel 1100 that's designed for touring. So they think the things that I just said. They think, oh, it's going to have forward controls, it's going to have a comfy seat, it's going to have more range. But it doesn't. All it has is hard bags and a fairing, making it the perfect day tripper. But it's not called the 1100 day tripper, it's called the 1100 touring. So I get the bike. I understand what it is intended for. It's intended for day trips. It's intended for the person who just wants a little bagger and they don't want to have to buy their own fairing and buy their own saddlebags and set everything up themselves. They want straight off the showroom floor, a beautiful bike, total package that has it all. It's light, it's nimble, it has tons of storage, it has wind protection, it can handle anything that you throw at it. Don't get me wrong, I would take this bike across the country. Once I do some of the mods that I was talking about that I have, I would take this bike across the country, no problem. I would tour on this bike. But that is my style of riding, where even when I do longer trips, once I'm on the seat for 3 hours, I'm done. Let me stop and take a quick break. Let me soak in the scenery. I'm usually stopping every hour or two to take pictures anyway. So if you're talking about touring that's kind of broken up like that, to where the 160 mile range doesn't matter to you, then it'll do it all day. But the crowd that's really die-hard touring, when they see touring, they need stuff for actual touring. So I think the one thing where Honda went wrong with this bike is calling it the touring model instead of something like the deluxe model or something like that. I think then when you hear Rebel 1100 Deluxe, you go, oh, that is the deluxe model. Look at how nice it looks with the hard bags. Look at how nice that fairing looks. This is the deluxe model. So there you have it, my unsolicited opinion. I got to rambling there a little bit, but I'm a bit sleep deprived from this trip, so please forgive me. If you have any questions on stuff that I missed out on, leave them in the comments below. But at the end of the day, I think if this is a Rebel 1100 Deluxe, it is perfect exactly how it is. But if it's going to be the Rebel 1100T, we just need more comfort and more range out of it to make it truly touring. But overall, this is the perfect package for a day tripper, somebody getting into riding for the first time, or getting back into riding after a long time away. So I freaking love the Rebel 1100. I had a blast on this thing. I'm a changed man. I love the DCT. Can't see myself getting one anytime soon, but I do love it. So anyone that I have told DCT sucks, I apologize, and you were right. So that's it. That's all she wrote. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm sure some of you think I'm an idiot, whatever. Leave that too, because it helps the algorithm. Shout out to the Patreon members for making all of this possible and supporting me on this journey. I could not be doing any of this without you. And if you want to sign up for Patreon, check out patreon.com/lifeofburch, where you can pledge your monthly amount and get behind the scenes access and much, much more. Thank you, Patreon members. I love you guys more than you know. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Signing out from Daytona Beach. I'm out of here. Love you guys. Peace.
Oh, so basic. Hope you play this. Damn, I prayed it. Nice song in. I became this. Old souls fake it. Pay those placements. Fuck shit. And I'm still waiting on the brighter days. Been a minute, been rough many times more. And I'm kicking rocks to a sky of gray. Praying hard, talk to me before I'm done for.